For 12 years, they laughed at that windmill, called it useless, outdated, a rusted piece of the past. Every ranch around him had moved on. Electric pumps, deep wells, modern systems. But he didn't. He rebuilt his grandfather's windmill and kept using it through the jokes, through the complaints, through the years, and then the drought came. Power started failing. Pumps stopped working. Wells went dry, and one by one, the same neighbors who laughed started showing up at his gate with buckets in their hands. Back then, the windmill stood out. Not in a good way. A tall, rusted tower of creaking metal, spinning slowly above a small patch of land that looked like it belonged to another time. Most of the ranches around him had changed. Electric pumps had taken over. Deep wells pulled water faster, stronger, more reliably. At the flip of a switch, water flowed. No wind needed, no waiting, just control. That was the new way. And for most people, it worked. The pastures stayed green. The cattle stayed fed. The systems ran day and night without question. And then there was Curtis Meacham, 46 years old, working the same land his grandfather had left him, while everyone else upgraded. Curtis went the other direction. He spent months restoring that windmill, replacing parts, reinforcing the frame, getting it to turn again, the way it had decades before. From the road, it didn't look like progress. It looked like someone refusing to move on. Neighbors noticed. They always do. Some slowed down just to stare. Others didn't bother hiding it. That thing's a hazard. You're wasting your time. Why not just install a real system? Even his own brother said it. You're holding on to something that doesn't work anymore. Curtis never argued, never tried to prove anything. He just kept working on it, letting the blades catch the wind, letting the system turn slowly, pulling water the old way, not faster, not stronger, just steady. And for years, that was enough. Not impressive, not efficient, but enough to keep things going, while everything around him kept moving forward. Curtis stayed exactly where he was, working with something everyone else had already left behind. For a long time, it looked like everyone else was right. The electric pumps ran without effort. Water flowed faster than it ever had before. Pastures stayed green through the hottest months. And the ranches that invested early kept growing. Bigger herds, more land, better equipment. Everything pointed in one direction, forward. And Curtis? He stayed the same. Same windmill, same pace, same quiet system turning in the background, pulling just enough water to get by. Not more, not extra, just enough. Some years, that made him look even worse. When rain was scarce, the others didn't feel it as much. Their systems made up the difference. While Curtis had to wait. Wait for the wind. Wait for the slow pull of water from below. And every time that happened, the comments came back. Still using that thing? You're falling behind. You can't run a ranch like that anymore. Curtis would just nod, let them talk, then go back to work. Because to him, the windmill wasn't about keeping up. It was about keeping going. Year after year, the pattern stayed the same. The modern systems pushed harder, pulled more, expanded faster, and the land kept giving, until it didn't. At first, it was small things, a pump that needed more power, a system that ran longer than usual, electric bills creeping higher, nothing serious, just adjustments. But over time, those adjustments became routine. Then they became problems. Some wells needed to go deeper. Others started losing pressure. The pumps still worked, but they had to work harder, and harder, and harder, until one summer, everything changed. The heat didn't break. The sky stayed empty. And for the first time in years, the systems that had always worked started to struggle. Not all at once, not dramatically, just enough to make people notice. And then enough that they couldn't ignore it anymore. The heat didn't let up. Day after day, the sky stayed empty. No rain, no relief, just dry wind rolling across the land, pulling whatever moisture was left out of the soil. At first, the systems kept up. The pumps ran longer. The motors worked harder. Water still came out of the ground, just slower. Then the power started to fail. Rolling outages, short at first, then longer, hours at a time. And every time the power cut, the pumps stopped. Completely. No backup, no water. Just silence. Ranchers stood by their systems, waiting for the lights to come back on, watching their pastures dry out, 1 hour at a time. Some tried to compensate, running their pumps non-stop when the power returned, pushing the systems harder than ever before. But it wasn't enough, because the deeper they pulled, the more the wells struggled. Pressure dropped, flow weakened, and then, for some of them, it stopped entirely. The pumps were still running, the equipment was still working, but the water wasn't there anymore. By midsummer, it wasn't just a few ranches, it was most of them. Fields turning brown, cattle struggling, water tanks running low. And the same systems that had made everything easier were now failing when they were needed most. That's when people started looking around, not for solutions, but for anything that still worked. And slowly, almost reluctantly, their attention shifted toward the one thing they had spent years laughing at. Curtis's windmill, still turning, slowly, steadily, exactly the way it always had. The first truck came late in the afternoon, slow, careful, like the driver wasn't sure if he should be there. It stopped just outside Curtis's gate, engine still running, dust settling around it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the door opened. A man stepped out, holding 2 empty buckets. He didn't say much, didn't explain, just nodded toward the windmill and asked, "You still getting water out of that thing?" Curtis glanced up at the blades, turning, steady, then back at the man. "Yeah." That was all it took. The man exhaled, like he'd been holding that breath for days, and walked to the trough. By the next morning, another truck showed up, then another. No announcements, no calls, just word spreading the only way it ever does out there, quietly, from one ranch to the next. He's still got water. By midday, there was a line, pickup trucks, trailers, people standing beside them, holding buckets, tanks, anything they could carry. These same people who had laughed, the same ones who said it wouldn't work, now standing in the heat, waiting their turn. No one joked. No one brought up the past. They just watched the windmill turn, slow, unimpressive, unchanged. And beneath it, water flowing, not fast, not endless, but steady enough. Curtis didn't organize anything, didn't take control, didn't say much at all. He just kept the system running, the way he always had, letting each person fill what they needed, one by one. Because out there wasn't anything left to argue about, not anymore. The system everyone trusted had failed, and the one they ignored hadn't. And standing there in that line, watching water come from something they once called useless. There was only one thing left to understand. It had never been about speed, or power, or keeping up. It was about something simpler, something they had all overlooked. The difference between a system that works when everything is perfect and one that keeps working when nothing is. By the time the heat finally broke, things didn't go back to the way they were. Some wells never recovered, some systems were pushed too far, and some ranches never fully came back. The land looked different, drier in places, thinner, like something had been taken from it, and not all of it had returned. But Curtis's ranch stayed the same, not bigger, not better equipped, not more advanced, just steady. The windmill kept turning, the same slow rhythm, the same quiet pull, doing exactly what it had always done. Nothing more, nothing less. People didn't laugh anymore. They didn't stop to make comments. They didn't question it, because there was nothing left to question. They had seen what happened. They had stood in that line. They had carried water from something they once called useless. And that changes the way you look at things, not just machines, not just land, but decisions. The ones that seem small at the time. The ones that don't make sense to anyone else. The ones that take longer and ask more patience. Curtis never tried to explain it. He never said, "I told you so." He didn't need to, because the lesson was already there, turning quietly above the ground with every slow rotation of those blades. That not everything old is outdated, and not everything new is built to last. And sometimes the thing that keeps you going is the one everyone else gave up on first.